evening. I'm Carolyn Waters, the head librarian, and I am so very pleased to welcome you all to the New York Society Library tonight for this great event with Mary Stewart Hammond. And before we begin, may I just ask if you have your cell phones on, you please turn it to silent. Thank you. This evening's event is generously underwritten by the Lynn Chase Poetry Fund. And Lynn Chase, as many of you know, has been a great champion of poetry in New York City for many decades. And in addition to supporting poetry programming here at the library, she also generously donated her large and important collection of contemporary American poetry to the library, which is housed in our Whitchurch room on the 3rd floor. Part of it anyway, it's still being cataloged. So we are so very grateful to Lynn Chase and to all of you who support the library with your annual fund contributions. Mary Stewart Hammond's poems have appeared in many magazines and journals, including American Poetry Review, the Atlantic Monthly, the Kenyon Review, the New Criterion, the New Yorker, the New York Times, and the Paris Review, among many others. She's been nominated 4 times for a Pushcart Prize, has received fellowships from the MacDowell Colony, Yaddo, and Writers Community Poet in Residence, and she's taught with the New York Writers Workshop. And these are some things that I did not know about Mary Stewart. Ms. Hammond has also been a child TV star, a child print model for Sears Roebuck, Miss National All-Day Sucker, a clothing saleswoman, an actress, a secretary, a sports writer, a radio journalist, a television producer, an interior designer, and a property manager. Although she says all she's ever wanted to do since she was 7 years old was write. Her latest book, Entering History, was published by W.W. Norton. Poet Rosanna Warren calls it a beautifully readable book. Intelligence permeates each phrase. Hammond's language is alive to corruptions and multiplicities of sense. Her wit is an instrument of moral intelligence. Please join me in welcoming Mary Stewart Hammond.
Thank you, Carolyn, and thank you to the library. It's a particular honor and pleasure for me to be standing here. My first exposure to the library, Mary Bullock, who was the founder of the Academy of American Poets, said that she wanted me to see something very special. So she brought me over here and we came up those long, broad stairs and opened the doors to this room. And for those of you who are not members of the library, you should know that they have here, there's a big long sofa there, and there are comfortable chairs, and all around the room, and then over here there's more chairs, and they've got, these are perpendicular to the wall so that you can sit and write on real paper with ink, or plug in your computer if you want to. And so Mrs. Bullock said to me, but you have to be a member to be here. And I thought, oh dear, I just don't know how to make the cut. And because she said, Mark Peel is very tough. He's the librarian, he's very tough. So I waited about 3 years before I did it. I was very nervous about this. Was I the right kind of person to be a member of this place? And I took weeks to fill out the form. And what was I to call myself? Poet in process, poet manqué. And then was I making, they had to be filled out by hand. Was I making the M's right? And so finally, it came about that Mr. Peel accepted me for membership in this place. And it really is quite a wonderful, it's a wonderful place. Besides this beautiful room, behind that sofa they have all the top literary journals that you would ever want to read. And they have to pass inspection to have real estate there. You have to appeal to, I forget, Sarah, what's the man's name? If you want a journal there.
Stephen the Girl.
Yes, and you have to, the journal has to appeal to him and be accepted before it's going to be on the real estate over here. Then over here they have things like The Economist and The New Yorker and The New York Times and art and architecture and interior design things. They also have upstairs, they have carols that you can work. There's a long table where you can go up with many other writers and plug in your computer. And one of the nicest things that they have are stacks, where real people can go into the stacks. You, yourself, into the stacks. This is very rare in a library. And what's wonderful about it, you can go in because you want to research a particular book. And you're walking along, and all of a sudden, this book comes to you, and this book comes to you, and there's a different kind of inspiration that suddenly happens because you have this. After Marie Bullock died, Lynn Chase followed her as the Academy of American Poets head. And Lynn had heard from Marie that I wanted to be a poet. So Lynn said to me one day, well, let me see something you've written. So I gave her, it's one of the poems in the earlier book. And according to her, and according to her husband, Ned Chase, she at midnight or 2 o'clock in the morning started reading this poem. And then started kicking Ned and saying, Ned, wake up, Mary Stewart, she's a real poet, she's a real poet. So that this is being underwritten by Lynn is pretty amazing. So I called her the other day, and she said, oh, they gave it to you? And she said, well, that's wonderful. And I said, you mean you didn't know? She said, Mary Stewart, I'm 94, and I'm a little dim right now. All I know is that I'm giving my collection. So it turns out that I had mounted those stairs, and here I am by myself. So I'm just glad that Lynn underwrites this. And she wants me to give her a report, only by telephone. She says she can't be seen. Give her a report. No, I'm supposed to write it on real paper. A report of how you all have behaved. Because I have tonight something I don't always have, and that is I have a serious literary audience tonight. And one doesn't always get this. I very often will throw in, the book it has a number of very funny poems in it. And usually with different audiences, I will throw those in to keep them entertained. I'm not going to try and entertain you all tonight. So you might get one, but not too many of them. And therefore, you are going to have to suffer through 3 long poems that I don't usually have a chance to read. And also, the book has been presented as a chronicle of a long marriage, but the long marriage, because it's long, it has history. But the book is called Entering History for a very good reason. Poem after poem, architecturally, is built on history. It's either the background, the middle ground, or it's as seen through the picture frame. So all the narratives here are about history, except for 2 that are about nature. And I'm afraid the way the world is going, nature may also soon become history, too. I'll read the title poem. Entering History. The door to the poem opens in, and a couple enter, set down their luggage, and stand, backs to the door, silhouetted against the light, taking in the room. They step through French doors in the far wall and out onto a balcony cantilevered over ramparts. The vast, impastoed Umbrian kingdom swoops away and down before them. They have climbed this world in 1st and 2nd gear half the afternoon, past 12th century belfries and 500-year-old cypresses, up the very black top, switchbacking through the view. Dirt roads lead off it, wandering Etruscan boundaries to invisible purpose. An ancient farm truck, no bigger than a pencil eraser, and the only sign of life and the 21st century crawls soundlessly along one of them. On distant hills, the honey and terracotta of Assisi, Spello, Spoleto, hover in the haze like cities of God fallen to earth, habitations for humans the size of seeds on white-haired dandelions. She leans her head on his shoulder. He kisses her. They've already shrunk half an inch since they began their lives together. They turn, re-enter the room, cross back and forth in profile, unpacking. He's acquired a stomach, and his hair has gone white. She pulls off her clothes. There's a scar on her breast, one in her armpit. 3 more run like roads across and down her belly. A bloom of spider veins tattoos her calf. They're getting old, but not so old we shouldn't close the door on their nap. Tonight, they'll have dinner downstairs. Tomorrow, they'll drive off into the view. For now, they'll awaken in this minor city of God, entwined in each other's arms. We'll hear them talking, sotto voce, on the other side of the poem, dusk erasing their bodies. The next poem I was going to read for Conrad Harper, who's the big Henry James expert, but I've had to cut it, so Conrad, you just read it when you get home. I had to cut something. That one is called Portrait of My Husband Reading Henry James. Vanask. He'd build a fire and bring me strong, dark, bitter coffee every morning, with lots of milk, warmed, little sugar, just the way I like it. And we'd sit opposite each other, clutching our mugs, in a little lone stone house in a little stone village perché in Provence in December in the year 1991. We probably said a few words of endearment, but we were each in a place the other couldn't reach, and the winter landscape outside matched, which is why we didn't want to look at it, had no room to take it in because it was already inside us. What possessed us? How could we forget Provence was on the same latitude as Nova Scotia? He had brought a 1,700-page book with him, Robert Massey's Dreadnought, Britain, Germany, and the Coming of the Great War, to be exact, although that's less important than the number of words. It would be about here, after a few words, a few swallows of coffee, when he would begin to read. I had brought a blank notebook, but was frightened of what I would find there. I would begin to cry, silently. Or maybe it was the other way around. I'd begin to cry, then he'd pick up his book. It doesn't matter. He was not shutting me out, he was abandoning himself. He is a man who needs certainty, the way the rest of us need food or sleep, and he no longer had a perfect wife. He had a wife who had just been treated for cancer, who most certainly was going to live, but might not. I also learned the day before we flew to France. He also learned the day before we flew to France, the way lovers do in disease-the-week movies to frolic in lavender and sunbeams when facing death, that he might not have a job when he got back. He was 55 years old. That was possibly scarier than having a wife with cancer. Excuse me, a wife who's gotten over cancer. It is advisable when dealing with this disease to think of it as being something like first cousin 17 times removed from the flu bug, because language, after all is said and everything possible done, is the only hot oil left to pour down on the marauding sails of any second wave trying to climb the ramparts. The second attempt to evade has been known to succeed. We, being everyone, don't talk about that. That's the value of language. On the other hand, language is quite handy for getting cancer off the table when there are other issues like being jobless in America in 1991 at the age of 55, which you can't treat at Christmas time sitting in Provence. Actually, unemployment is a condition that can be treated with language, but the odds of it being a cure rank with the odds of fruits and vegetables will cure cancer. Take spin, for example. Spin is extremely useful when you've decided on a treatment of choice for staying alive, financially or corporeally. After that, it is probably better to look straight ahead, turn neither to your right nor your left, neither positive nor negative. Everyone who survives treatment is said to have survived cancer. The word recovering would be closer to reality, but instead, we have the hocus pocus expression, cancer survivor. I am a cancer survivor. Hello, my name is Mary Stewart. No hyphen, I am a cancer survivor. Notice I use quotation marks. Spin doctors do not. This is the opposite of an AA meeting. This is a lie or not a lie. This is medicalese. The truth is, the only way you know you've survived cancer is when you die of something else, meaning you never know. So he was pissed at me. Of course it's dumb, but understandable. At the bank for giving him notice, at himself, beyond idiocy, beyond a woman's comprehension. I could tear my hair out on that one. He was by my side like his life depended on it no more. He had been my shepherd through the valley from suspicion to biopsy to diagnosis to surgery, through meticulous notes on medical options, 4 different options, none of which agreed. We get to choose, eeny, meeny, miny, moe. The question never answered, what would your wife do? This is what the movies don't tell you about having or not having cancer, and about having or not having employment. 1, you are all alone with this. It's just you and the shelter of whatever language you can muster. 2, that you are your own village perché, clinging to the edge of a cliff where you can do nothing for each other. 3, even friends have no access unless they already have a passport stamped village perché. The rest, who understand where you are, don't like it any better than you do. It could happen to them. 4, you are walled up, sealed off, only the enemy can get in. 5, you will have found powerlessness. We don't go out much. The road in and out of the village was narrow, winding, and steep. Dangerous, it seemed to us, and we were already in enough danger. Besides, everything was vermeil, including the landscape. Like the last scene on the beach about the end of life. The bomb drops, then spreads radiation over the globe until it reaches Australia, and the cast dies in Rembrandt lighting. No lavender, nothing green and living. Dead leaves cling to the grapevines. Wind machines move them accurately. The moves are stubby. A sheet of old newspaper rattles mic'd down an empty street. Of course, in our scene, wherever you go underneath, whatever goes on underneath the earth was still going on, but it required more imagination than we had available to revegetate the brown and umber boulders of the Luberon. Even the sky was open only 5 to 6 hours a day. Meanwhile, the Mistral operated 24 hours through us. When we could bring ourselves to climb into our rental car, we went into the other village perché and saw them as through slivers of daylight, the width of arrow slits in castle walls. Mostly we sat in the little stone house with the dark scratching at the windows, trying to get in. Somewhere in the castle keep, screams emitted from the dungeons, although we were absolutely still and silent inside our house. Depending on atmospheric conditions, sometimes Mahler or Beethoven joined us, courtesy of Radio Classique. He didn't want me to know he was scared for us, or he didn't want himself to know. He wasn't talking. Maybe he didn't know the word for scared. Maybe he didn't know how to pronounce the word, didn't know the language of the village perché he had landed in. Maybe the language hadn't been invented yet for stiff, upper-lipped men without a job. It seemed better not to let on, I knew. Maybe he didn't want me to know he was scared I would die. Maybe he didn't want himself to know. We had always slept, arms and legs entwined, loving the feel of the flesh of the other. Now, we couldn't bear the feel of the other. It was not a rebuff. It was as if every nerve was on fire, as if touch would scorch us. We slept in Vanasque on our backs, arms to our sides, eyes open to the dark until sleep closed them. This is survivable. All that is needed is to know what village perché the other is in and why, what the time zone is, then wait. Time for a little light. My husband asked me not to read poems about him, but so far we've just done 2 of them, haven't we? And I'll do a third. This is called The Big Fish Story. Late fall, not a soul around for miles, just me and my man, and those scallopers trolling a few hundred feet offshore I'm pointing to, emphatically saying, no, none yet, in every language, including body English. In response to his idea, we take off all our clothes, smack in the middle of the lawn in broad daylight, and go swimming. This is the line he throws me. But sweetheart, the young have given up scalloping. Those are all old men out there. Their eyesight is terrible. Which explains why I'm naked in the water off the coast of Massachusetts on the 14th of October and loving it. The water still summer warm, feeling like silk, like the feel of his flesh drawing over my skin when we landed on a bed. So I swim off out of his reach, lolling and rolling, diving and surfacing, floating on my back for his still good eyes. I know what he has in mind, and what I have in mind is to play him for a while for that line I swallowed. Delay the moment I'll do a slow crawl over to him, wrap my legs around his waist, and reel him in, just the fish he was after. I hope you all are up for another long poem, but it is history. Current history, past history. It's called Lines Composed at Beaufort, South Carolina, a few miles above Paris Island. And I think some of you will recognize this as something of a hint to Tintern Abbey. In fact, Wordsworth starts that saying, 5 years have passed, 5 summers with the length of 5 long winters. And so he starts somewhat differently. Wadsworth has a sister in his poem. I have a brother. And the poem makes reference to a Miss Judith. And this is a name that I give to the character in the book. But Judith, in fact, is one of the apocryphal books called Judith. And she was a young widow of 3 years and 4 months. And the fairest and the purest. I also make reference to tabby, which is a sort of concrete that's used in the houses in Beaufort. It's a mixture of oyster shells and lime, sand, and water. And the A refers to Hawthorne's Hester pine. "5 days have passed, 5 days with the length of 5 long nights, and nothing has changed. Not I, not my brother's mind, not the world's. It takes 10 days, the duty sergeant said, for discharge papers. And I unpacked and waited. Mornings I sketch boats nodding on the sun. Nights I study a rare collection of antebellum mansions drolling around a quiet port with the musky smell of Hepburn and Adam on their breath. Afternoons I spend at the base dispensary waiting to see my brother, driving the 8-mile hyphen between morning and night, cocooned in the car radio's full volume bravado. At the sentry box I present my visitor pass, reserved for families of graduates, the injured, the suicidal. Inside the island's barber tropics, crew-cut grass and topped palm trees hung with hanks of untamed Spanish moss muster in precision through azaleas and birds of paradise. Signs coming and going on the roadways boast, we train the world's best killers. And platoons fresh from bayoneting sandbag bodies, scoring hits on pop-up plywood humans drill and stomp to breakfast, lunch, and dinner, shouting, oh yeah, ready to fight, ready to die, ready to kill with all our will, oh yeah. And I retreat to Beaufort and talk to ghosts, drawing comfort from Federal and Greek revival buildings, water-turned catching breezes under discreetly raised white-column porches. Each a temple to love, because Miss Judith, shall we call her, slept 6 months with Sherman to save her town from burning, or just because. In any case, the town was saved to its everlasting shame. It endures a tribute to the act of love without honor, and curves around the bay like dirty linen for all the world to wonder why it is the only town left untouched in all the path of Sherman's Holocaustal march. And Miss Judith, was she the fairest and purest, or maybe a young widow of 3 years and 4 months? Could the town do nothing to stop the collaboration, or did it not want to? Where is honor in a place captured and occupied? Consider the consequences. She climbed into Sherman's bed. He didn't torch the place, but she was shunned, and the town became sire and heir of its shame. When Sherman withdrew, he left plugged in his place a dildo of memory, each spared house a mark of collaboration, a tabby A on its chest, sealing the town in a borrowed time. Such a nice girl, the whisper runs down to this day, from one of our finest families too, and he was no gentleman. General Comp, I understand they call you, if I may be so familiar, Tecumseh. A coup, a stroke of genius, hoisting them on your blade, dangling with the thought they honored you by their mere existence. Your face is saved in theirs, and their face, unbaptized by the cleansing fire, is ruined. How you must have loved looking back as you and your army rode away, seeing your manhood risen, tattletale white and glistening in the sun, not just one, but 10, 20, 40 houses, with your seed pulsing through their halls and English basements, joining you to them for so long as they shall live. What more could any man want? Did you know fire would make them victims? That survival would destroy their face more than fire, would leave them sipping bourbon on upstairs wooden porches, staring off to sea for generations, rocking tangled feelings and complaining wicker chairs, dwelling endlessly in their dwelling. Or do I wrong him? Was the town his parting gift to Judith, given out of love? He did like giving towns as gifts. Savannah's destruction he called his Christmas gift to Lincoln. The destruction of other towns he called gifts to General Grant. Or were the houses turned into hospitals, spared because they still held the Union wounded? What was it, Comp? Tell me it was love. Tell me it was a touch of the man peering through the soldier. And to her I whisper, what made you do it? Why when he lay in your arms, gentle, legs weakened, unmanned, didn't you behead him? There she is in the shadows, looking at me, amused. Ah, but then she's gone. Don't leave. I need to know. But what does it matter? The North and the South lay down together, enemy, with the whole town desiring it, feeling themselves traitors because of their desire. And when the two sides rose, the town still stood. Now it's Peccant Harbor. Peccant splendor harbors me, gives me sanctuary against my anxious days. It nourishes, feeds, and houses me, this town, twice occupied, not alone the Union Army, but now by Marines from the base, who traffic like unowned ghosts through the wall of preoccupation. The town's unconditioned left hand, once again, money changes war into room and board, and that little extra, a coat of paint, new front steps, even a little AT&T. Compromise is still their grits and bourbon, and the spared houses cast flat, oblong shadows like coffin lids over bumpy sidewalks. I step from one to the other, watching the proud headlights and taillights passing on the distant bridge for the daily boot camp graduations, and lean my cheek against a tabby house to touch the rough signs of love, finding comfort in its lastingness. 8 miles away, prepared for battle, my broken brother, ready to die with all his will, but not to kill. Shoelaceless marches his shaven head and beltless green fatigues into insanity. Our preacher father blames himself for coupling God's word to his commands of obey, delivered at the end of a belt, and wonders if his son is weak. And the song we learned in Sunday school, Jesus loves the little children, runs in my head, oh, the children of the world. Or is he strong? Red and yellow, black and white. And the preacher's down on his knees. They are precious in his sight. On a sandy beach near Paris Island, Jesus loves weeping and praying for words, his palms, the little children, clutching each other, begging the unanswerable God of the world. What do I say to my son now? The wait time to see my brother is long and the visit's short, 10 minutes. He is brought marching from his cell to the visitor's room. He does not embrace me when he sees me. He doesn't see me. He is marching in circles, punching the air with one arm, shouting the Marine Corps chant, holding up his pants with the other. But sometimes he stops, falls in my arms, but not for long, and I croon him in tongues, this split son of our world's creation. Stroke the stubble on the face he buries in my lap. And then he's up and marching again. At dusk, I drive back to Beaufort, where the windows of the houses curving around the Gulf glow like a necklace on Judah's throat. Oh, dear Father, judge not, judge not. This is all we have for answers. Your son can't hear us. His voice is almost gone. Yet still he raves his manhood into padded walls, marching our questions onward off to war, around and around cell block 4, rasping, oh yeah, ready to fight, ready to die, ready to kill with all my will, oh yeah. The tears he doesn't cry running these 5 days along my cheeks. This next is a short one. It's about another brother. Not about this one. It's about another brother. In fact, this actually happened right before this other brother got recruited into the Marines. Anniversary, July 31st, 1965. Tonight they were bringing my brother up from the deep. Nothing so grand as the sea, merely a quarry in Georgia, barely a mile or two wide and flooded in a depth of 200 feet. No bigger in the scheme of things than a soup spoon's bowl, but it held him, it cradled him. This place, vast as death, small as life, it reduced him to a speck in the universe. The size of him, after all, was vast and small. It filled the spoon. It disappeared. One of the reasons for wanting to do that along lines is because I think we all know very well what it does to our soldiers' minds when we send them off to war. And yet, they have to be trained to do this, to protect themselves, and to protect their buddies that they're out in the field with. And then we bring them back. We don't quite know who they are. They're whole, except that their minds are not the same and never will be the same, and we're not willing to pay for this. need some water. I don't know about you all. This, unfortunately for you all, is another long poem, but it's my chance to. You all just unfortunately happen to be so smart that I know it's okay to do this. The characters in this poem, just to keep it all clear. It's called Jacob and Esau, the sister. Jacob and Esau, if you will remember, were twins. Esau was born first. Was the firstborn. Jacob didn't like this, so Jacob tried very hard to keep Esau from being the firstborn. They were the children of Isaac, and Isaac was the child of Abraham, who was sort of the patriarch. So you don't get lost in the names there. I've talked to some of my Jewish friends about this poem because Jacob was pretty bad. And I said, what about this? And they said, well, we sit in synagogue every time we talk about how can this guy be our leader? And then we decide, well, it is what it is. So, I also wanted to do this poem because at the time I was going through this, it sort of helped me because I found little sort of wicked things that I could say and help me go through this very bad period, which I thought I was going through all quite alone. That nobody else in the whole world had ever had this kind of experience. And then I was talking to somebody who said, oh, hey, Mary Stewart, you wouldn't believe how many families have a bad brother. And then I was talking to somebody else who manages family money for one of the big banks and like that. She said, oh, Mary Stewart, 80% of the families, it's like this. And so in AA, you have somebody who falls down and you know you've got an elephant and you know that you can do something. But if you've got a sociopath and a pathological liar in the family, the only thing you really can do, because there's nothing, is denial. That's about it. I see a friend out here who's on the faculty of one of the schools here, and also used to be one of my students. And when she read this poem, she sent me a note and she said, Mary Stewart, you just nailed Trump. Jacob and Esau with sister. Even before recorded history, Jacob lived. When he wasn't threatening to sue, he dreamed. In Hebrew, his name means heel grabber, leg puller, for trying to keep his twin brother Esau from emerging first from the womb. He's also called for good reason, supplanter, deceiver, the son of Isaac, gone blind, grandson of Abraham, brother in blood only to Esau, yet centuries later, it is he we see snoozing in oil paintings, his head cushioned on a rock in the desert of his fathers. See him in the same pose in Sunday school coloring books. See him oil his way into your living room. You may know him. Jacob dreams he is climbing the corporate ladder, but he has never set foot inside a corporation. He doesn't believe the entry rung is for him. At the top of the ladder are chairmen of the board, who look a lot like angels and know his worth. They hold out to him a gold parachute for failing. Where is Esau? He is working the fields, plowing, sowing, reaping, hunting game, earning his keep from BC to AD. Now, 36 centuries old, he is long-hauling copper and railroad ties and rebar in an 18-wheeler from Hebron to Canaan, through Galilee to Appalachia. It was given he'd wind up a tired truck driver the day he pulled into Genesis, exhausted, famished, facing bankruptcy, his jeans empty, and found his twin brother. Lying around, quaffing the grape, acting like cock of the walk, living off his father, Isaac, the easily duped, using the Heimlich maneuver to make him cough up extra talents of silver to support him, his wife and children, to buy them a new tent, new hardwood floors, a slate roof, another business, to upgrade their camels to a Cadillac and Lexus. After all, they were a deal. Of course, Jacob does nothing in return, except he doesn't see it that way. So here's the situation. We have two brothers standing face to face in the middle of Genesis. One is exhausted and starving. That's Esau. The other is stirring a pot of lentils. That's Jacob. They eye each other. They eye the bubbling pot. You know the plot. Esau says in his polite southern way, "I'm mighty hungry. May I have some?" Jacob says, "Sure, hand over your birthright." Jacob, as we have seen, is skilled in this kind of deal. Esau sticks up his hands and surrenders his inheritance. Theologians had no problem with this. They blame Esau for agreeing to such a trade. He lacked mojo, or he despised his birthright, or was careless of it, or had not been properly parented, and felt himself worthless, or felt he had no right to his birth, or didn't understand what he was signing. The spoils, including the storytellers, go to the victor. Thus, it is writ, if you're took, you're took. A deal's a deal. This is the Old Testament, and it's their story, and they're sticking to it. What kept any author of that reimagined history from asking, can none of us imagine the aroma of a pot of lentils held like a gun to the nose of a man ready to die of hunger? What is a birthright worth to such a man? What kind of brother takes such advantage of a brother? What kind of descendants are we not to question? What kind of brother asks for so much in return for so little? What kind of brother doesn't just give a morsel from the pot to a starving brother? Answer? A brother hungry for a kingdom with no collateral but a pot of lentils, a stew of failed get-rich-quick schemes, and his father's blindness. And this is the one featured in oil paintings? In Jacob's dreams, he is the Prince of God, and his name shall be Israel, and his name will be given him by God. God will do this without wrestling with him to confess his sins. He will become a leader of men rich in cattle, silver, and gold. He will stretch his pot of beans into a meal off others. It is written in the stars, the cash register will ring. When he is awake, he rails against Isaac, son of Abraham, for his failures. He'd be rich and famous now, he rants, a national success if Isaac hadn't cut off the money stream after 50 years. Don't worry not for Jacob. He is writing a book about George Bush and Jesus. It will make millions, not counting the movie rights. Before the sand began to already blind Isaac's mind, he saw Jacob had tricked him into blessing him, the wrong son, the younger son, the smooth-skinned, hairless second son kneeling before him, his arms covered with animal skins, the better to fake firstborn Esau's hairy arms and the smell of the fields. But Isaac didn't know how to undo his mistake without getting Jacob pissed off, make him threaten again to keep his grandchildren from him, so he stood by it. None of it mattered anyway. Jacob didn't need Esau to sign away his inheritance. Jacob just helped himself to what was left of fields and goats, understanding camels and dreams were not the future. The future was his for the taking. It was simple, really. When Isaac died, all he needed to do was to forge his signature, put words in Isaac's mouth, and backdate the tablet. Like so many stories of fathers and sons, the withholding son, given so much, knew the power of withholding love, and left Isaac to live in squalor, and Esau to live penniless in a trailer park. What to do? What can anyone do now that it's done? Oh, sister, asleep on your bed of roses, missing from Genesis and all its subsequent books. Wake up. Tell the truth. You weren't missing. You were on tiptoe in the background, seeing and not seeing, not letting on, even to yourself, any of this, blind as Isaac until too late. Isaac, abandoned, is where this story always ends. What's left is but to tell it. Then go back to sleep. Go back to dreaming. It runs in the family. Dream a little tenderness. That's the end of the long punch. You've been a good audience. Very tolerant. Gate 35. My father is dying in Florida. He is still breathing in, breathing out. I'm still at LGA, breathing in, breathing out. The flight is delayed. 1 hour, 2 hours, 6 hours, breathe in, breathe out. He is skin and bones, 6 feet of him down to 5'4" and 129 pounds. Breathing in, breathing out. After 1 hour, we are gathered like sheep at the gate. After 6 hours, we've become family, new friends. They notice my altered breathing. They stroke my shoulder, pat me, rub my back. Sympathy is the thing I can't handle. It makes me cry, and I do. The loudspeaker pages passengers announcing the next flight to Florida, not ours. To Indianapolis, Boston, West Palm Beach, anywhere but Tampa, St. Pete. We sit in wire chairs on the floor, some asleep, some reading, everyone breathing. The next announcement comes to us from the ceiling. This plane has a weight and balance problem. Delta needs 6 volunteers to give up their seats. Stop breathing. Will 6 people step forward in time? Is this what life is like? All of us waiting for departure? My daughter says, relax, your father isn't going anyplace. Not true. He has already begun his ascension. Afterlife, this. JetBlue goes from 0 to 150 in 30 seconds and lifts from the murk into the sunshine where my father wafts on the other side of the window, suspended in the upper, pure, bright air. He is wearing street clothes and a clerical collar. He never wore one when he was below. He considered them fig leaves, a flaunting of rank before the flock. I am adorned, head to toe, in fig leaves. He points this out to me even now through the window. See the forefinger of his dead hand wagging? See my gold earrings, my good cloth coat, my diamond ring? See him struggle to remove his belt. He wants me to know I am loved. He mouths Proverbs 13:24, as if I didn't remember. To spare the rod is to hate your children, and oh, how we were loved. Norman Rockwell magazine covers were his vision of our family. He moves his arms as if swimming up from the deep. He is trying to find heaven. He is trying to find Mother. She is hiding. This next poem is very hard to read because it's got 2 voices in it. And the voices sort of intertwine. It's very easy to read on the page because it's in italics. And so you've got the voice of the narrator, and then it is the words in the Declaration of Independence as written by Jefferson and many others. I feel it's important to read this right now because it was the Declaration of Independence that led to a little war that led to the Constitution that's being trampled on right now. And the people who signed this, I think I have it in the poem, but just in case it doesn't come through in the poem. Most of the people who signed this, or all of them, knew that they ran the risk of losing their lives. And some of them did. Many of them were killed, they were targeted. Many others had their lives, had their families ruined, their housing ruined. They lost everything. So something outside themselves, something bigger than themselves, even though right now they're worried about the money in their pocket. These are people who, many of them really lost just about everything. And so I just think this is an important time to read. I don't think it's my best poem, and I don't know whether I can even get this across with the two voices. It's called, and it's for a friend of mine, the late Rob Garrett, who told me I had to write this poem. It's called Reading the Declaration of Independence on the 4th of July. It is a tradition in this family to gather after lunch on the 4th under a pavilion built on the flat roof of an old boathouse. There, 5 generations of the owners of an Adirondack camp pass a copy of the Declaration from person to person around a table, taking turns reading aloud when in the chorus, a designated passage. It becomes necessary for one people and handed to the next. A 5th generation, these truths to be self-evident, toddles unsteadily about the floor. All men are created equal, with her sippy cup. Massive logs braced with tree limbs evinces a design to reduce them under absolute despotism. Hold up the roof. The history of the present king, its overhang and the railings, is a history of repeated injuries. Frame the forest undulating around a table, pocked with islands, obstructing the laws for naturalization of foreigners. Wind crinkles a patch of water. A wooden Chris-Pratt motors by, setting the water. Plundered our seas to sloshing harder. Destroyed the lives of our people under the boathouse. Across the lake, through a dip in the trees, 2 ridges fade. Circumstances of cruelty and perfidy scarcely paralleled into the mist. In the foreground, the long arm of a pine entreats. A hemlock's limbs dangle down. Deaf to the voice of justice and the occupants of this landscape, these united colonies are and of right ought to be free and independent. Past the past and who we are and how we came to be into the present. Jefferson's language, we mutually pledge to each other our lives, marrying with theirs, his words inhaled into their bodies. Then 56 names, each signer, are told one by one around the table, many signing away their lives with that stroke of the pen. Button, Gwinnett, Lyman, Paul, George, Walton, William, Hopper, Joseph. The names linger in the air. We are here. Next to the last one coming up. How many of you recognize the name John Bubbles Soublet?
Jackson?
Yes, he's one of the early tappers, one of the early tap dancers.
First sport in life.
What's that?
He's the first sport in life.
Yeah. So I have a quotation at the top of the poem that is from Bubbles Soublet, who was one of the first of the black tappers. The poem is called Tapping Survival. And it says, listen to my feet, and I'll tell you the story of my life. John Bubbles Soublet. This is what you'll need. Tap shoes, a hardwood floor, unvarnished, unwaxed. Maple and oak are least likely to splinter, and air, plenty of air. It's the air under the floor that makes the stage a drum to carry a message the way the drums did back home. When the deep bass of your heel strikes the ground, followed by the little clip of your toe, the side of your foot sounding like it's clearing its throat or whispering, making a sneaky slide before the ball of your foot snares the melody. And a screwdriver, small to loosen the taps, so the sound is not so crisp. Forget the smiles. This is not the time for smiles. And keep your arms out of it. This is not show tap. It's the story. Play it for keeps. For real. This means no hips. Legs should hang from the hips, as from a skeleton, or a man at the end of a rope. The feet swinging from loose ankles. The better let the spirit out. See how light the body is, unburdened by the soul, how it skims the floor like a dragonfly searching for its beat, for the voice buried within the beat, for the spot on the drum that gives that dead-tight tom-tom sound, and fadap, hit it. Eyes front, so no one suspects. Lay down your iron, talk, show, boom-diddy-boom, nothing, diggity-boom above the hips. This is about time, tickety-blue kashuk, passing and not passing. This is about staying alive. You, spitting out the verbs, tapping to be heard, tapping on the lid of the earth, pretending, shaft a boom, you're whistling Dixie. That poem came from many years of watching Xavier Glover, the great tap dancer, and he started when he was 12, he would sit underneath the stairs of the stage listening to the old tappers, and each one had their own way of doing it, their own rhythm, their own particular spin that they would put on it. And Xavier, when he, I guess even now, he's always incorporated the steps of the old tappers into his routines as an acknowledgement to them, an acknowledgement of what they had gone through. He has always been telling us the history of their lives and what they've done. So, in fact, that expression, spitting out the verbs, that comes directly from Xavier Glover. And it was just from watching him years and years and years that I understood what he was doing and what he was trying to tell us. So now we coming to the last poem. It's called In Bed with an Old Man. And when I told my girlfriends the title of this poem, they all said, "Oh boy, could we write that poem?" But, I bet you there are a whole lot of men out there who could write a poem called In Bed with an Old Woman. And this picks up some social history. In bed with an old man. It's a double bed, also known as full. They measure 54 by 75. You may not be familiar with them. They predate queens, which predated kings, and were themselves an upgrade of twin beds for married couples as seen in 1930s movies. They were thought to be healthier for you and also less likely to give moviegoers ideas. Back when the old man was a young man, he brought me to spend the summer with his mother. My bags were put down in the guest room, the one with twin beds. What a row that caused. Mama, we are married. We want to be in the same bed. Son, that is not healthy. You won't get your proper rest. I should hope not. He won, but the war wasn't over. Every morning at breakfast, she would look grim and say, "Son, you don't look like you're getting your proper rest." What we were getting was entirely proper now that we were married, and we remained healthy. Bear in mind, I'm his age-appropriate woman, or close enough to know the names of the TV shows he watched as a kid, and also to have danced to Lester Lannon, and now to have a tummy fat enough to make him worry it's a disease. I tell him the disease is called old age. He doesn't believe me. Isn't that sweet? We do not use Viagra. Make of that what you will. As we shut down our laptops, perhaps the new safe sex, and go into a cuddle, naked as the day we were born. And the only way to sleep in a double bed when the old man is 6'5" and 195 pounds. His skin is still as soft as the day we first coupled. We turn out the lights and the rest, oh, the rest. You with your eye to the keyhole. It is so sweet. Does anybody have any questions? Do you want to go straight to the liquor? Yes, Conrad.
Mary Stewart, would you tell us how you write? That is to say, where, when?
I'm actually a sort of binge writer. I wish I were the kind of writer. There are some writers who can just, they start at 9, they quit at 1, and then they can do the grocery shopping, and they can go to the dry cleaner. And I wish I were that kind of writer. Unfortunately, I'm a binge writer, so once I get into it, everything goes to hell. There's no clothes are done, there's no grocery done. I am what Arthur calls his little grease ball. And I know this is going to happen, so I have to be very careful about when I'm going to get into a place like that. And it doesn't happen enough. This book is, it's long overdue because I've had a very complicated life. And so I only have these bits and pieces from time to time, but then, you know, it's 3 weeks or something, maybe 4 weeks or something. I did get the first book done. Fortunately, I got a fellowship, a 2-month fellowship to McDowell Colony. And I think had I not had that, that first book would not have been finished. I needed those 2 months, and you're not interrupted. They even bring your lunch to you, a little, there's a lunch box that's set down outside for you. They know when the fireplace needs to be filled. You don't have to think of the back of your head, ooh, I need to put firewood in. You don't have to think about anything, and that's really what I need. And then a lot of this one was done when I had a 2-month fellowship at Yaddo. So I'm one of those people who really needs to be locked up for writing, so that I can have the kind of concentration. These poems are not easy to write. They are multi-layered, and that takes time to keep track of all the different layers that you've got operating there. So, I don't know. That's how I do it. I wish I could do it differently. It would be very different. Marcia?
Can you tell us what you read?
At the moment, I'm reading Stan Plumley's new book called it's called Against Sunset. Wonderful. He's a wonderful poet. I'm also beginning work on 2 different memoirs. But in the midst of working on the memoirs, I suddenly have poems going on in my head. So I'm in a taxi, and this is my new way. I'm in a taxi, writing down these words, because suddenly this stuff opens up, and I need to grab it. So then I tap it into my cell phone. But then I'm so technically challenged that I can't find it afterwards, but it's there, I can find it. So where the memoir is concerned, I have some stuff that I want to read afterwards, but I want to read it while I'm in the midst of doing this because it's very much, it's about tone and a kind of wonder and remembering back to a particular period. And so it's important to me that I not, until I have finished, read this other thing so that I can see whether I maybe have left something out. But I don't want it to get into where I am trying to go right now. So I can't even tell you what that got. They're sitting over in the bookcase. But I read that, and I started reading, these are just new things that came up. Jeanette Watson Sanger has a new book out that you can hardly put down. It's called It's My Party, and she deals with her growing up as being a child of great privilege, but depression, and she used to be the owner of something called Books and Company, one of the best edited bookstores we've ever had. So I'm reading that, but I'm trying not to read it because I had to get ready for this. And then I have someone who is something of a former student, an assistant, babysitter for one of my grandsons, and she's a wonderful poet. And a wonderful poem that I've seen many versions of called The Glass Eye. She suddenly turned it into a memoir because she realized poets don't make any money. So it's now a memoir, and it's called The Glass Eye. And she had her book launch in Fort Greene on, was it Saturday, I think it was, Wednesday. And so I'm reading that, and her book is about the trials of how she has reared herself up out of a very poor background. She's absolutely brilliant. She's almost as smart as you, Conrad. But she's quite brilliant, but there's also a lot about depression in it. And she said, I wanted to be very careful that this wasn't marketed as the new sex topic is depression. And she said, I don't want it to be that. So these things sort of land on my desk and I read, but I don't have a lot of time to read right now. Not a lot of time. Unless I'm forced to, because you're giving a lecture on James, and then I have to read like crazy. So, any more questions? Everybody ready to have a drink?
We have such talent in our bank.
That's a longer conversation.
Mars preparing yourself for the finance committee meeting by coming to the talk.
Exactly. I think it's probably not a bad attitude. To all the members tomorrow. Right. That's okay.
Neighbors for, I think they served for over 30 years. Just about.
Oh, I just like the description.
We've been members here.
Sarah Kern.
You okay with that?
Okay, although I history mates, but
You're the big fish.
Always wanted to.
On the beach.
I know when I sit on the beach.
Oh, really?
we couldn't hear more when the kids were young.
I know, he was right between you, Cardigan. But he wrote a science fiction fantasy that was science fiction fantasy was the exact opposite of that. Yeah, it was one story after another.
Right. What age was this?
Sixth grade.
Never heard.
Right.
You're not on it. Well, nice to see you.
Okay, good to see you. See you tomorrow.
Talking, we're escaping.
He's so happy he doesn't have his house anymore. He got it in.
Counties,
Where are you going for? What's his name?
50 on the southwest corner of Fuller Street Sheriff's Office. It's about the second, just in the started to circle.
You went to your house and parked at your house. You had a house and a park.
We didn't have to do yacht club.
For the grandchildren. You know, the grandchildren, we saw how they he's just enjoying
Over, darling,
Namesake.
give it more respect.
The namesake of the ancestors. The original number 3.
Remember the thing that your grandparents are renting planning you. Picture.
Bye, Art.
You didn't hear it from me, but I think she's singing over you.
Good night, Arthur. Wonderful to see you. He's talking about the rum, Grandpa. You're talking about the rum. And
Well,
he was the little
and it
boy
was
on the
called-
lake.
Picture of a destroyer modeled expressly for sea.
That I didn't know. There was some liquor. Get to the point, okay. Grandpa dogs in double-breasted coat and hat on the lake.
With a topper.
With a topper.
Under,
Would have been a stovepipe.
So that he was on the lake.
This top hat was a truncated cone.
Yeah.
About 10 years old.
Okay, oh,
Yes, jacket.
well, I had eaten soup. Did you ever eat soup?
Certainly did not.
Well,
You
you're
were just a
that
little
much
enough younger.
later.
All right, well, this
They
is
did try to put us in 10 days.
Listen.
Tell me about, is it the same story?
Well, there's two stories. It's the Brooklyn story and it's the Calvin story. When Bill's mother moved over to Grandma Darling's house, when we got there, and they had twin beds with two nightstands, you know, one on the bed and one on one side of the bed. And that's right. I was just back and forth. I love your mother, she finally came. And I said, somehow came out, we were going to push the beds together. And in those days, I didn't know whether she went beds together, you could use fitted king sheets on. So at some point, we pushed the beds together and we were making them up as twins, but they were together. And one day we went out, I think, staying or something. We came back and she had been over at Rickman's, the Vineyard Dry Goods, and she had bought 2 sets of king-size sheets. And she finally gave up.
Yep.
And she did, but before.
So it was the same story.
But before we were
basically.
here in
Except that she didn't talk, she just frowned.
Yes, but no, but here in New York, I mean, when we first came back to New York and Brooklyn, and she gave us, I don't know, $1,000 to buy some furniture or something. And we started.
was enough.
Yeah, in those days, she started out about, now you must get double beds, and if you get sick, you don't want to be in the same bed, and this and that and the other thing. She tried every dance around this thing.
Without really knowing why.
Well, she just, it wasn't going to happen. They stuffed in twin beds till the end of their days.
My father and mother had a solution that we called Harrington Park beds. My grandmother walked from an antique dealer in town, and they were each 3/4 beds. And 2 of them were in the bedroom, so they could commute.
I know.
They had it to do over again. You
are famous.
Ever tell?
Yes,
And
I
they
know.
got-
He met how much
Bill,
We're gonna get on the
he's a great historian. She is a great educator. She is the voice of WQSR. So why don't you
He's the voice of
don't you interview people for the
I don't do interviews. They don't allow them late at night, which is when I do my show.
Story I tell my students, I did tell them for more than 40 years, was when they told me about the music, I would say, well, I was about 14 years old and I was driving me for Long Island where I lived in the city by board prep school. And I turned on my favorite radio station in the car and suddenly heard, don't step on my blue suede shoes. So I said, what is this shit?
You turned on her station or
It
something.
was W2XR
Couldn't have been.
rollover Beethoven for a while. Thanks to William F. Buckley.
Oh my God, no.
Well, on the porch in Edgertown, there was I think it was Portuguese or certainly Catholic radio, and they had the Roosevelt. Holy Mary, Mother of God, forgive us, sinners now and at the hour of our death. They don't say how much time we, and they say it over and over again, and they say business. Yeah, that's right. And my brother, sitting there a little bit tight, mesmerized. And my brother had cancer. 8 years young. He said, "What is this?" My father and he said, "This eats it," and stormed off.
I love it.
And he went away. We never had a chance to explain it to him. The subject was never brought up.
Well, this is the culture war, we later learned to call
Radio
it.
and media has been in the forefront of so many
The
things.
Kulturkampf.
That's right, yeah, it's older than what it is.
Oh, it's very old. We'll see. You know what? Over looking where I was going, found in Granada. You came.
So wait a minute, so David and Nate. were they-
From East 21st Street. I'm from Budapest. Hi.
Nina Hamashi.
Some of
I was
the,
telling you about how I really, we should talk about food. I knew we doctor said,
where? No, I mean, where did you spear yourself? Well, you don't need it. You don't need it.
no, you can.
Okay. Really? It must have been the injury and not the spleen.
Well, the injury. What's this?
Oh, me too. I'm on my second year. I explained to Mary Stewart that I accepted for next Monday, figuring I could do both Mary Stewart and Renee Fleming. And then a meeting has preempted both of them.
Are you coming next week?
Anyway, it's nice.
That'll be more.
Yeah, and I like parties, as you may remember. I give nicely. I can't. It's a terrible intrigue. No, it's complicated. I promised Mary. No.
All right.
But I promised Mary Stewart I would take her to lunch and tell her it's a poetic intrigue.